Hello, everyone. Nathaniel Gavronsky here, and I am in Boston's famous North End. In fact, right behind me is the old North End Church, and you can see in the steeple up there, there are two lanterns. Those were placed there by the sexton of the church. Those were to warn that the regulars were on their way. Now, we've heard that, one if by land, two if by sea. Well, two, which is what shows up there, means they were going to come through the Charles River and not through the Boston Neck, which would have been quite a few hours longer march for the regulars to travel towards Concord. So what leads up to this? Well, you've had the Stamp Act, you had multiple other taxes levied on to the colonists here in Massachusetts by the British Crown. However, most of them had all been repealed. The problem was the day they started they repealed all the taxes. They also, the British Parliament passed the Townshend Act, which basically said that we rule, that means London, and your colonial legislature no longer matters. We are dictating what we're going to do. You are the governed, not the governing, and we don't like the way you're behaving. Now, up until this point, up until April 18th, 1775, there were multiple chances for the war to be averted and for the colonists and the crown to make other arrangements. After tonight, that will no longer be possible. It's from this point here that the sexton of the church, when he placed those two lanterns by the request of Dr. Joseph Warren to his writers, Revere just being one of the many, to warn the countryside that the regular army was on their way. When I mean on their way, they were coming to get all the stockpiles and the reserves of gunpowder and munitions that the militias had been stockpiling over the previous couple of months. Since the Boston Tea Party had taken place, the Crown had enough. So you had the Townshend Act, and you had the Intolerable Act, which basically is the Crown determines what laws are here. No longer the Parliament. The colony charter had actually been revoked by the Crown. And then you had the fact that the harbor was shut down until reparations were paid to East India Company for the tea that was lost. This was the point where the colonists were like, no, we don't want to do this. We're tired of negotiating with you. The British, the government, like I said, all the taxes were repealed. But they wanted to get the guns and the gunpowder away from the colonists because it's much harder to have a revolution or rebellion if there's no guns and no gunpowder to shoot them with. So that's the reason why the regular army was on their way to Concord. Now, in 1773, right after the Boston Tea Party, there were a few other stores of munitions and powder that the colonists had rounded up. Also, thanks to Revere's warning that there was a possible regular army marching towards them to recapture them and take them away from the colonists. So that's what it was going to happen in Concord, and the colonists this time had a system of warning the surrounding area that, hey, this is what's going on, get ready. So the sexton places these two lanterns, letting the Minutemen and the Riders know that the British were not going to be coming through the Boston Neck, which were taking hours longer to get to Concord, that they were going to go by the Charles River further inland and then come through land that way. That was the two by sea, meaning the river. From that, there's a marker that warns people in Charlestown that this is getting ready to happen. So this was all organized mostly by the Sons of Liberty and Dr. Joseph Warren. Joseph Warren was probably on his way to becoming one of the most prominent people in the Revolution, but fate would have other things in plan for him. But for two of the riders that was set out that night from the Boston area, one was William Dawes and Paul Revere. They leave from the Boston area and start heading towards Lexington. Now, when they reach Lexington, their main goal is to warn Samuel Adams and John Hancock that, one, the regulars are coming, and they are there. Hancock has a house there. They're kind of laying low outside of Boston, and they're trying to help organize, this way of protecting the guns and the gunpowder from the regular army. That's the reason why the regular army is coming anyway. They get there. Revere and Dawes both reach Lexington. They also come across a gentleman by the name of Dr. Samuel Prescott. He's actually very, very important because as they start to leave Lexington and they notify the townspeople there, Revere gets captured. Dawes gets thrown from his horse and has to walk back to Lexington. Paul Revere, even though they talk to him, they question him for several hours, and they start bringing him back, but because they get under fire, a volley fire from Minutemen, they end up letting Revere go, but without his horse. So Revere has to walk back to Lexington. No one out of those original two, out of Dawes or Revere, make it to Concord. But because they were able to inform Dr. Prescott, he's actually able to get to Concord and let everyone know. But right here, 250 years ago, this night, is when that turning point, that point of no return takes place. And those two lanterns up there signify that 250-year history of the beginnings of what becomes the United States. Up until this point, other colonies are kind of fed up with the British government. They have their grievances, but there hasn't been any, significant tip towards war. This signal right here is that point of no return. If it wasn't for the Minutemen being warned and people in Lexington being put on guard, there would have been no one in the Lexington Commons to greet the regular army when they arrived. Now, those 70-so men that got there, they slowed the regular army down. And when those 8 or so men were shot and killed, that set our alarm bells, figuratively and literally, around the countryside, which allowed all of the Minutemen, all of the guardians of the area that were part of the Sons of Liberty or sympathizers to their cause, to go to Concord at the bridge in Concord, where the Battle of Concord takes place. This is that moment. These two things, Paul Revere's Midnight Ride, along with his cohorts, with the William Dawes and Dr. Prescott, the Lexington might have been different. There might not have been the shot heard around the world at Lexington. Not as many people might have been warned to go to Concord. The numbers of Minutemen at Concord might not have been significant enough to repel the British Army. This is where it starts, everybody. So 250 years ago tonight is the beginning of what becomes the United States. All the ideas, all the things in history that the United States would achieve starts here in Boston. And this in front of me here is a statue of Revere as he's, quote unquote, marching away from the church. That's a statue that he never actually was this close to the church. His house is just right around the corner, by the way. He left his house, kissed his second wife goodbye, and started on his ride, which again he never completed. But right here, this very night, 250 years ago, is significant. So I'm going to be traveling to Lexington. There's going to be some activities at the Commons, I understand, in the morning. So I'm going to keep you all posted on how things go. Paul Revere at this time of the morning would probably be somewhere in Lexington, griping about his horse and figuring out how the heck he's going to get back to Boston because he is without a horse. William Dawes is in the same boat, and we'll talk more about them, I'm sure, as we go through this 250-year anniversary of the Revolution. But I wanted to bring you guys all here just for a moment to this space. And I'm going to pull the camera up so you guys can kind of take a look. They have it all kind of like decked out with lights. And here's the statue of Revere himself. But this is the church. That's it. That steeple right there. Those two lanterns. That's cool, guys. So I hope you guys get to enjoy this. I will be posting this video soon, probably on my way to Lexington, so it has time to get posted to everyone. But join me on my midnight ride. I actually left New York City and travels at night to kind of signify the midnight ride. So thank you, and I will see you all at Lexington.